దూర విద్యా విధానంలో డాక్టర్ బిఆర్ అంబేద్కర్ ఓపెన్ యూనివర్సిటీ దేశంలోనే మొట్టమొదటి సార్వత్రిక విశ్వవిద్యాలయం. దాదాపు 2.5 దశాబ్దాలుగా దూర విద్యా విధానం ద్వారా కంప్యూటర్ కోర్సును అనుసంధానం చేస్తూ బీఏ, బీకామ్, బీఎస్సీ డిగ్రీ కోర్సులను అందిస్తోంది. పోస్ట్ గ్రాడ్యుయేషన్ స్థాయి, డిగ్రీ, డిప్లొమా స్థాయి కోర్సులను ఔత్సాహికులైన విద్యార్థులకు అందిస్తోంది. డెవలప్మెంట్ స్టడీస్లో సెంటర్ ఫర్ ఎకనామిక్స్ అండ్ సోషల్ స్టడీస్ ద్వారా ఎంఫిల్, పీహెచ్డీతో పాటు విశ్వవిద్యాలయమే స్వయంగా దూర విద్యా విధాన అంశంపైన పీహెచ్డీ వంటి పరిశోధన కోర్సులు ప్రవేశపెట్టింది. సుమారు 4.5 లక్షల మంది విద్యార్థులు ఈ విశ్వవిద్యాలయం నుంచి ఉన్నత విద్యావకాశాలు పొందుతున్నారు. డాక్టర్ బిఆర్ అంబేద్కర్ సార్వత్రిక విశ్వవిద్యాలయం స్థానికంగా స్వయం బోధనా పద్ధతిలో ముద్రణ రూపంలో రూపొందించిన కోర్స్ మెటీరియల్ అందిస్తోంది. కోర్స్ మెటీరియల్ అధ్యయనానికి సహకరించే విధంగా రేడియో, టెలివిజన్ పాఠ్యాంశాల ఆధారంగా కార్యక్రమాలు ప్రసారం చేస్తోంది. అధ్యయన కేంద్రాల ద్వారా ఏర్పాటు చేసే సలహా సంసర్గ తరగతులు, సైన్స్ ప్రాక్టికల్ సౌకర్యాలు విద్యార్థులకు స్వయం అధ్యయనానికి ఒక చక్కటి అవకాశం. ఇవి విద్యార్థి సమీపంలో ఉండే అధ్యయన కేంద్రం నుంచే పొందొచ్చు.
Good afternoon, viewers. Welcome to the teleconference program of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Open University. Today's teleconference program is intended for the library and information science students of the university. The duration of this program is 90 minutes. In the first half of the program, our experts will give you an overview of the topic, and in the next half of the program, the students are encouraged to interact with the experts and to clarify their doubts. To interact with the experts, you can call on the phone numbers 040 2703 1431, 040 2703 1432, 040 2703 1433. The main purpose of this teleconference program is to enhance the learning experience of the students and to enrich and update the knowledge in the subject as well as about the emerging concepts. The topic of today's discussion is e-learning. Technology revolution has drastically changed the way we live, we work, the way we learn, and the way we purchase the goods. Technology has pervaded every aspect of our life, including education. Before the advent of internet, education was confined to the classroom teaching, where teacher played a prominent role in imparting the education. However, the education was accessible only to certain sections of the society. With the growing demand for education, different models of education have emerged. For example, private study, correspondence education, open distance learning systems these models have emerged. The open distance learning system, which emerged in 1980s, it has gained wider acceptance. The open distance learning, it has adopted a multimedia approach, and it used the technology support to deliver the instruction through radio lessons, tele-lessons, teleconference programs, etc., in order to bridge the distance gap between the learners, teachers, and the institution. With the emergence of internet in 1990s, the e-learning opportunities have begun to rise. The multiple advantages offered by the e-learning, such as low cost, the enhancement of the learning experience of the students, and the student can learn at their own pace and place without going to the institution, so on and so forth. More and more students, they started opting for the online courses or getting education through e-learning. In today's teleconference program, we will be discussing the various aspects of e-learning, such as the benefits of e-learning and the components of e-learning, some guidelines for preparing the e-content, and then we will be discussing about the different content delivery mechanisms, including learning management systems, and then we will also be discussing the impact of e-learning on LIS education. To discuss this topic in detail, we have with us in our studios two resource persons, Professor V. Chandrasekhar Rao Garu. He is the former professor in the Department of Library and Information Science, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Open University. Welcome you, sir. And then the other expert we have is Shri N. Satyanarayan Garu. He is the Senior Technical Officer, CDAC, Hyderabad. Welcome you, sir, to this discussion.
Well, thank you.
To take the discussion forward, I would like to ask Professor Chandrasekhar Rao Garu to explain what exactly is e-learning and to explain the concepts related to e-learning. Sir.
Sure, madam. So, e-learning, you see the letter E prefix in the word learning. That means E means electronic. Electronic learning means use of any device, electronic device, for the purpose of learning, like your gadgets like TV or audio video devices, so or even computer. These were used in the earlier days. Now, e-learning became synonymous with online learning. That means use of internet for the learning or convergence of learning with the internet or convergence of internet with the learning. So, internet enabled learning, these are the now the meaning lies with the learning lies with the internet. So, you have seen, I think, the various generations of distance education. In the first generation, way back in 1980s, so we were using only the print media. Then in the second generation, we were using the audiovisual media. In the third generation, we were using the teleconference mode like this. So in the fourth generation of distant learning, so the internet became more handy for the learning purposes. And the fifth generation, maybe the advanced countries may be using that one, use of the intelligence multimedia and creation of the university portals for the purpose of learning. These are the 5 generations of distance education. That means at the 4th generation level, the internet became a part of the learning system. So why internet became a part of the learning system? Because of the technological revolution, that is one aspect, and globalization, different countries with their developments, advances coming to the other countries, or the smaller countries even they are entering to the other countries, even the developed countries. So these are the factors which enabled the use of internet or the technology based education into our learning system. So why this? There are so many benefits of using the e-learning mode. For example, e-learning is media rich, media intensive. That means we use multiple media like audio, video, even text, animation, etc. So if you integrate all these media into one platform, that is multimedia. So what is benefit of this multimedia? What are the benefits you accrue from the multimedia, like appeal in creating interest, so better comprehension. These are the benefits associated with multimedia, those benefits can be accrued through this e-learning. Second aspect is so flexibility in learning. So you can learn, the student can learn their educational content from anywhere at any time. It's a more flexible mode of learning. The third one is quality of content. So the technology cannot discriminate the students, even poor students or rich students, or the urban based or rural based. Quality of education material content can be delivered to the students. So one way democratizing the educational aspect. This is a very, very important aspect. Then personalized learning system. The students, I may be learning only a part of the course today, so I don't have time to spare my time for learning the other part. I may postpone. I can shift to the next year. So this is another advantage. So from the learner side, these are the 4 or 5 advantages from the learner side. From the administrator side, it is more cost effective. So if you develop a course once, that can be updated at any time. So initial cost may be more, and that could be updated any time with any content, and that can be used for years together. Second advantage from the institutional side is shareable. So different institutions can come together, they can collaborate, and they can use. You don't find which institution has it developed. You can create a virtual environment so that learners won't feel which institution has created this content, and that can be shared by anyone from anywhere and at any time. So this is in a maybe a business model could be worked out, e-business model can be worked out, and that can be shared. So cost effectiveness. Another thing is it can be the students then collaborate, as well as the institutions, as well as the students, they can also collaborate. They can even contribute the content to the e-learning mode if they are very thorough with this one. So these are the major advantages of the e-learning.
Sorry to interrupt, Professor Chandrasekhar Rao garu. Just now you were explaining that students can collaborate, they can be like, when we talk about this e-learning, very often we come across the concepts like asynchronous learning and synchronous learning. So what are these concepts exactly, and how do the students pursue education using these models?
So very good question. Madam, synchronous and asynchronous, these are the terms of operating the e-learning mode. One is asynchronous, means synchronous. Let us first learn about synchronous means online. The student and the teacher will be online always. For example, if you are chatting with the teacher, a student is chatting with the student, both are online
At the same time.
at the same time. So asynchronous means the teacher and the student need not be online. So I put up prepare a content as a teacher, upload it to the computer, the website, university website. The student can learn at any time. So the charting is one mode of synchronous mode of learning. So a content, static content or a dynamic content can put on the uploading at that one on the web or email. So the student raises a question if he could not a particular part of the content, then he asks the teacher. So if the teacher clarifies, he posts the reply maybe after a day, after 2 days, after 3 days. So that is asynchronous mode of learning. This is a simple mode.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Chandrasekhar Rao garu. And another concept we very often we come across is flipped classroom. So Sachinaran garu, can you explain what is this concept flipped classroom?
Yeah, madam, actually flipped classroom means what is happening here is the teachers or the faculty members, they will put all the content online. So they will first offer the courses in online mode. That is what we know, what we have been discussing about e-learning actually. So students, what they will do is, once they go home or from their home, they will go through all the content. So that first, before attending the classroom, they will go through the content, and once they come to the classroom, the main activity will be faculty will be focusing more on activities or solving students' questions. That is what this concept is called as flipped classroom.
That means the students comes prepared to the class,
Yes, yes,
and
yes,
to attempt some activities or
Yes.
to attempt some conduct some experiments.
Yes.
So the students come prepared, and then the teachers help them to solve their doubts.
solve their doubts,
Okay,
actually. Yes,
thank you, Satyanarayan garu. And now Professor Chandrasekhar Rao garu, can you please explain the different components of e-learning? Like we have the needs analysis is the primary component. Like before attempting to implement e-learning, any institutes should conduct a needs survey of their learners. And can you focus on this?
Yeah, any institution which resorts to the e-learning mode, there are certain things they should take care of. So first, whether e-learning could be operated in the particular context of the particular country. Is the e-learning suitable for the students? So we are habituated for the classroom type of learning. So and nowadays, the distance education has also pervaded everywhere. So many institutions are coming up. So e-learning is a new concept, but it is as I told you, it is media intensive or technology intensive. So the accessibility of the media, technology from the learner side, that is very important. Then institutions which are preparing for the e-learning, there should be certain things they have to observe. So e-learning content should be more flexible. So it should be, we use the term granularity. So as small chunks as possible, it should be divided into that one, so that student can have flexibility of learning. As I told you earlier, so the student like me maybe I can spare only half an hour today. I cannot spare more than that one today. Tomorrow I may sparing the 2 hours for the learning purpose. So at that time, so the content which are smaller in chunks, I can learn that content if they are very granular. Small chunks are there. So I take today only one chunk. Tomorrow I may be taking four chunks, so that I can finish by the end of the particular schedule. So that is one. As I told you, another one is accessibility. The students should have whether they are using what type of devices they are using. So whether they are using computers, iPads, iPods, or whether they are using mobile phones, smartphones. So whether the bandwidth consideration should be there. So I put more of video content in my server. The student may not be able to access that content from a rural area. Now thank God we have 4G now, so we can the streaming of audio and video is not a big problem. But you think of the earlier times. So maybe 2 years back, we do not have only the 2G and then 3G came. So it was very difficult. Even before that one, we used it as a World Wide Web means World Wide Waiting. People use it to laughing it out. So these are the situations. Then platforms, what type of platforms are needed for loading the content? What type of, maybe Satyanarayan garu will explain about this. So LMS and other things. So the platforms, the university should think, the institution should think about what sort of platforms are useful. Whether we have the commercial platform like Blackboard. I think in Indian situation it is very difficult to afford that one. So maybe say around 1 crore, institution has afford to purchase that or subscribe to that one. We have the open source platforms. So those you can think about that one. Then interoperability. So the student may be using one gadget today, he may not be using the same gadget tomorrow. So maybe I am using computer desktop. Tomorrow I may purchase a laptop or iPad or iPod, or maybe I may be using a smartphone. So the content which was developed on a particular platform may not be suitable for the other platforms. That consideration may also be taken care of. So these are the interoperability among the different platforms. So then another thing about interactivity. So no e-content should be static. So student cannot concentrate more than 10 to 15 minutes at a time. So if you have the interactive, after 10 minutes, if you put up a particular quiz or some interactive device into that one, so we can judge how much he could able to understand. So then another aspect we have the content should be more of multimedia. One media, for example, you put on keep on putting audio, so students may not be interested at a stage. Then we have to think about what sort of media is more likely to be accessed by the students. For example, audio, animation, there are different media are there. So that we have to think about. So these are the certain things we have to take care of while thinking about preparing for the e-learning by an institution.
Thank you, Professor Chandrasekhar Rao garu. So we were discussing the components of e-learning, and sir has very aptly he said that the needs analysis is very important for the institution to know whether the learners have access to the devices, and then what are the prior knowledge of the learners also is very important. So whether he has whether the learner is comfortable in using the devices, that is also a very important aspect which needs to be considered. And then for this, for planning the e-learning courses, before offering, the institute should make a survey of the needs analysis of its learners, so that the content can be planned in an and structured in an organized manner. And then another concept, another component Professor Chandrasekhar Rao garu has discussed is about the interactivity. That is incorporating the video component, incorporating the quizzes, and so that the learner will be given an opportunity to interact with the content. Because e-learning is mostly self-directed learning, so the learner should be able to interact with the content and then focus his learning. And then the other component is interface and navigation. Satyanarayan garu, can you focus on this interface and navigation aspect?
Interface and navigation means here actually if we look at the interface point of view, user experience is the most important thing here. So there are several technologies have been evolved over a period of time. The most recent one we can say is a responsive design layout, because most of the online courses, if we look at online courses, they are being offered through web. So on web, actually when you want to develop the content, you also have to look at the responsive web design concepts. This is where actually we will be addressing the issue of adaptability and interoperability, as Professor Chandrasekhar Rao garu is saying. Here adaptability means adaptation to different types of devices, basically like the different gadgets what he has mentioned just now. Responsive web design, what it gives is actually the content, the same content developer will be, the content creator will be creating the content in the same similar fashion, but the content when it is rendered on different devices, it will adapt itself to the resolution of the device that is being used for accessing the content. So this is where this responsive design will play a major role. This is a very recent thing, and several libraries are available from the software developer point of view. He can help the content creators in making the content rich as well as adaptive to different devices. And when it comes to navigation part, it mostly depends on the course creator. He will be the person who will be designing the course plan, curriculum plan, everything. So from technology point of view, there are standards called SCOM, Shareable Content Object Reference Model, which will help which will actually help in organizing the content in the fashion that the course creator would like to have it.
Okay.
So, there are very several e-learning standards which will help us in organizing the content in a specific manner.
So, to bring in uniformity among the courses and then to make it easy for the student to browse through, we need a platform.
Yes.
That is, we call it as a learning management system, we call it as a content management system.
Yes.
So, this provides an interface to the students.
Yeah, most of the sorry to disturb you. Actually, most of the content authoring tools like Articulate, if you take Articulate is one content authoring tool. These authoring tools have the provision to export the content. We need not bother about what is this COM as a teacher, because that is outside the scope of our domain basically as a teacher. So, these authoring tools will help us in designing the content as per our intention, I mean as per our core curriculum plan, and export it in a SCOM format. So, what is the advantage of this SCOM is, one aspect of interoperability Chandrasekhar Garu has discussed just now. The another aspect of interoperability is, in e-learning courses what happens is, most of the time you will be spending lot of amount in designing animations using various tools. So, lot of effort also will go in this course preparation and these things. These interoperability standards like SCOM, what they will do is, once the content is prepared, once the course is prepared according to that particular standard, you need not bother about the underlying platform, the learning platform basically, because what happens is, once the course is exported in a SCOM format, you can deploy it on any learning platform which claims that it supports SCOM standard. So, this is where what we in e-learning terminology, this is what actually interoperability is referred to, apart from what the aspects what Chandrasekhar Garu has covered just now.
Thank you, Satyanarayan Garu. So far we have discussed the concepts of e-learning like online learning, and then we have talked about the flipped classroom, and then we have also talked about asynchronous and synchronous learning and the benefits of e-learning like studying at their own pace and place, and then multimedia approach, and then the provision for collaborating with the learners as well as with the teachers. All these aspects we have discussed so far, and we also have discussed a bit of the standards also like SCOM for e-learning. Now, we will gradually move on to the e-content preparation, which is the most important aspect in providing e-learning, in planning the e-learning. Professor Chandrasekhar Rao Garu, as we all know, Bloom's taxonomy, it says that a learning will be complete when the learner acquires the skills, 6 different sets of cognitive skills. That is, the first skill is to remember. The first skill, the basic skill, the learner after going through a unit or after going through the lesson, he should identify the concepts, that is remembering the concepts. And then the second is to understand. To understand means he should be able to recognize the concept and then understand the essence of that concept, meaning of that concept. And the third skill is application. That is, whatever he has learnt, he should be able to put it into use or application oriented. And the fourth skill is analysis, analyzing a particular concept. So, what are the reasons for this? And then he should be able to analyze the decisions also. And then evaluation, assessment and evaluation. And then the other skill is to the ultimate objective of this is to create, that is, with the knowledge gain, we should be in a position to create something relevant to what we have learnt. So, these are the cognitive skills for, that has been enunciated by Bloom's taxonomy of learning. So, sir, then I would like to ask you, what is the learning objectives and what is the importance of learning objectives and learning outcomes in e-learning? And what are the characteristics of e-content, and how to develop can you give some guiding principles for developing the e-content?
Yeah. For developing the e-content, as I told you, the most needed thing here. I told you the granularity of the content, so that student can easily understand whatever the points you are raised in the Bloom's taxonomy, they could be applied to this while preparing the e-content. The ultimate objective from the learner side is to comprehend particular thing and able to pass through, evaluate through that particular learning content and come out of this one. So, here while preparing the learning content, there are certain things you have to think. So, what is the type of the content we have to upload into the website, so the portal. So, like we may be using different types of content, maybe text, that is electronic text, e-text, then we have the audio content, then we have the video content, we have the graphics like images, then we have the photos, then we have animation, all this content. So, preparing the e-content for any of these particular modes of the learning content. So, we have the devices, you have the software. For example, we use Microsoft Word or OpenOffice for that context for preparing the content. Then that could be changeable. The e-content could be it should be flexible, it should be changeable, it should be colorable, it should be formatable, so it should be portable. So, the flexibility of contents, maybe a student may be as I told you, may not be interested in the one mode of the content. So, maybe some students maybe if I put only the audio, all students may not be liking it. So, the content should be changed. Some may be interested in video, some may be interested in animation. So, that sort of thing we should consider for the creating the content. Then colorable, they may be for the text, so that that we can take the font, changing the font and coloring to distinguishing the headings with the text, the size of the font, that etc. Then portable from one device to the another device. So, I may be today I download the content on my laptop. So, I may be those graphics or images I may not be using today, tomorrow I want. So, I may be download that content to my smartphone and may be using while traveling that one. So, these are the certain things we should take care of while preparing the content in the content. So, not only the e-text, we have images. So, for editing the images, we have the software like Photoshop. We can use that one for editing the images. So, then we can use the Flash. So, we can also use other software programs. Adobe is there, Adobe e-learning suite is there. So, different software packages are embedded into that particular suite, which could be used for developing the e-content by a particular institution.
And while developing developing content for a printed text is different from developing content for the e-learning material. In a printed text, we may use a bulk of material, or we can give all the information at one place. But in e-learning, as Professor Chandrasekhar Rao sir has already said, it has to be granular. The information has to be very brief. We can also use like bullet points to explain the material, and then you can also give links wherever it is possible. Sometimes whenever it is you think that some more information is required, you can give links to that, for example, links to Wikipedia or links to the other reference tools which are available on the internet. We can use the links also. So, like this, and care should be taken that we always have to use the active voice, and then while preparing the text. So, this learner will be very comfortable, then he will feel that he is getting personalized content.
Language is very important.
Language is another thing that is which plays a very important role. and then like this we need to take care about the preparing text also. Similarly for graphics, so do you think Satyanarayan garu that we should take any precautions for while preparing the graphics, while inserting the graphics into the e-learning text?
Yes madam, actually with respect to graphics or image format, there are several image formats are available like TIFF, GIF, JPEG, PNG, but all these formats actually they serve different purposes, different scenarios actually. For example, if you have very less number of colors, then probably you can think about using PNG format, which is lightweight when compared to BMP formats or TIFF formats kind of thing. Likewise, apart in all these formats, probably we can look at the mostly used or the commonly used file formats like JPEG, PNG or GIF. Okay, and in GIF, in case if you have small animations to be, in case if you have concepts which actually have to be explained through small animations or simulation kind of thing, then probably you can go for GIF format. I will give you one example. In computer science, we have sorting algorithms like quick sort, bubble sort. These are all different types of algorithms which explain about sorting mechanisms. So, in order to give a better understanding of how these sorting algorithms will work, you can think about using GIF formats. You do not require extensive programming, maybe a little bit of animation knowledge is required here on how to frame these things and these things with respect to GIF format. Likewise, in case if you want to go for if you are going for some images, then you can think about using JPEG images. So these are all different varieties.
Okay, and while using the images, I think the pixels, I think there are two systems like vector system and the other one,
there are two types of image formats are available. One is called as raster images, another one is vector images. So that basic difference is the raster images means this JPEG, PNG, they all fall under raster images, and SVG format it falls under vector graphics actually. The basic difference is in case of raster images, we count the image size and other things, other aspects, other characteristics of image based on pixels. Whereas when it comes to vector graphics, some mathematical formulas will be used actually in order to draw the pictures. So another major difference is with respect to raster images, I think if you stretch the image size, then the quality will degrade actually. When it comes to vector graphics, quality will not degrade, but we have to compare, we have to take other aspects like size and other things when we decide about respect to image formats.
So depending on the requirement, we have to use whether to go for different types of the image files.
So in actually in the internet we can find lot of literature on which kind of image format is suitable for in which scenario.
Okay.
So once if people go through about these guidelines, they can easily identify which will serve their present requirement.
Yes, after deciding what type of files to include, it is often, I think it is safer to give alternate text also by the image, sometimes if required, so that the user will not get confused. You can interpret an image in several ways. So it is better to give alternate text so that to make the things very clear for the learner.
Here I would like to add a point. You have raised an important question here, like giving alternate text and other things. There are standards called accessibility standard. W3C is an organization, international organization, which has released accessibility standards. So whoever develops the content, almost all the tools like what sir was mentioning earlier, like Microsoft Word, presentation, or other tools, they are all supporting, mostly they are all supporting accessibility standards. So when we develop the content at the time of using images or video descriptions, these accessibility standards, what they do is they will give provisions for mentioning alternative text or long descriptions. So when people having difficulty in viewing the content, or when they are Yes,
Sorry
yes,
to
yes.
interrupt you,
Yeah.
interrupt the discussion. We have a incoming call. Hello.
Hello,
Yeah, may I know who is speaking? Please introduce yourself.
I am Vijaya from Srinagar Colony, madam.
Yes, tell me. Please be louder.
తెలుగులో ఉంటుందా ఇంగ్లీష్లోనే నేర్చుకో
Yeah, please ask your question.
ఈ తెలుగులో తెలుగులోనే
There is some disturbance. Can you please come away from the screen and then put your question again? Hello.
You can continue.
So in this
us
accessibility standards means almost all the tools supports accessibility standards. The main purpose is, as I mentioned, you can include you can include some text which will help assistive technologies based tools to understand that particular text and read out. Because this content whatever we are preparing, it is not only for people who are good in listening or reading. Maybe sometimes people having difficulty in reading or viewing the content. So for them also having this kind of alternative text will be useful. That is what actually these accessibility standards will stress upon.
Thank you. This is a very interesting thing for our students to know. Thank you, Sachinarayan Garu. And also the video file, when we are inserting a video clip or audio clip, it is likely to put more load on the internet.
Bandwidth.
Again, we have a incoming phone call here, sir. So, hello.
ఎగ్జామ్స్ ఎప్పుడండి
Hello.
Exams ఎప్పుడు
ఎగ్జామ్స్ ఎప్పుడండి
See, your
Yeah, exam.
please cut it. This question is not relevant to the topic we are discussing. Please, you find out from the university. To continue the discussion, actually we were talking about the alternate text and then the inserting the audio and video into this. This will put more load on the bandwidth also.
Yeah.
So, do you think that putting just to enhance the learning, we should put more videos, and at what time usually, what is the where should we go for this video? That means, like, if you have instance of describing a story, then or giving some examples through the simulation, then I think in such cases we can go for animation or the video, so that the burden also will not be so much for the learners can easily interact with the content. So, having discussed this e-content, now let us move on to the tools and technologies. Briefly, we will cover this topic, sir, because being a technical officer, you can explain the various tools available for creating e-content.
Okay. Yeah, in market we can see there are several thousands of tools are available both in commercial and open source mode. So these tools are actually available for creating text, visuals, graphics, and many other types of multimedia content. But I think when we talk about content creation, we first of all, before going for any tool, first of all we should have clarity on what type of content we want to develop, for whom, and what are the technical requirements with respect to bandwidth utilization and other things. Because what happens is, most of the time when you develop the content only in video format, we also need to worry about the bandwidth related issues also. So we have to use these animations or video very sparingly. As you rightly mentioned, we have to use them in sparingly. And when it comes to the tools, I feel if we stick to some 3 or 4 different types of content formats, that will be sufficient for the majority of the content creators, as well as for viewers also, whoever wants to access that particular content. For example, for text based content, we can use Microsoft Word, that itself is sufficient, and open source, open office tool for text creation. And when it comes to video thing, if you look at most of the online courses, they are developing content in MPEG format. So we have to pick up tools, video tools, which supports these kind of codecs. MPEG 4 is the latest codec, which is predominantly being used by majority of the online course creators, like for example NPTEL or OpenCourseWare, these kind of institutes, they are actually using this particular format. And when it comes to video creation, Camtasia is one of the important tool, which probably it's a commercial tool, and as well as there is a open source tool is also available, that is called as Cam Studio. But when you compare open source and commercial, the difference will be obvious. Open source tools will be having less number of features and less number of support, very few less support when compared to commercial tools. Camtasia is one of the widely used tools in content creation. Using this particular tool, you can record your screen, and you can while teaching, you can also add audio narration, audio narration. You can create content, screen capturing is possible. So mostly I think if you look at Khan Academy courses, most of them such kind of tutorials you can prepare using Camtasia tool.
Yeah, another tool is Articulate. You were
Articulate
mentioning
is
before.
one more tool. Yes,
that
yes.
also for narrating the PowerPoints. You
Yes,
can
yes, yes.
all these tools. There are so many tools that are available. And these are, as you said, the user, the student should be convenient to download the material to and to interact with the content. So it is always better to confine to the simple files which the user is comfortable with.
Yes.
So thank you, Satyanarayan Garu. Let us move on to the, so far we have discussed about the e-content, how to prepare the text, how to prepare the graphics, and what are the precautions we should take for while we are uploading the videos and all, we have discussed briefly. Now we will move on to the content delivery mechanisms. So there are, when we think about content delivery, we often come across the concept LMS. Professor Chandrasekhar Rao Garu, can you explain what is learning management system and what are the functions of a learning management system?
So basically, once you develop the e-content, so there should be a platform for delivering the content to the learners. So and also managing administering the students. So here LMS, learning management system, a part of this one, sometimes a course management system or learning content management system, maybe modules within the LMS. LMS is a broader term. So LMS is a broader term, the platform which manages the content. That is basically the function of that one. That means it has, we have to develop a database of the learners first. So who are the learners? The students the learners can register with the institution, particular course. So what type of delivery mechanism they need. All these things they can register at the time of what are the accessibility for them. So they can register and they can inform the institution. Second is a repository of the resources, the university which is offering the courses. So they have to maintain a repository. So a repository means, as we said, e-content may be available in different formats, different modes. So what are the modes, how the interactivity can be achieved, like evaluation points, testing, etc. What are the built-in mechanisms, what are there. So that is another second point. Third one is the performance of the learners to be tracked, monitoring the performance. So performance path should be tracked, that's one. So that a report can be prepared by the institution. So how much time the student is is sparing for learning the content, how many modules he has completed, how much time he has spent, so what are the assignments he has completed, what is the grade point he has earned. So that what happens, the university can track and the student can be alerted every time. So that the LMS platform does all these things, so that they are tracking the performance of the student, creating a repository of the courses. If the courses are not, all the courses are not from the particular institution, they can share with the other institutions and collaborate with the other institutions, or if the some of the courses or the content is freely available on the internet, like open access journals. So we have the e-journals, e-books are available. So they can provide links to that one. So then the fourth point is evaluate. From the time to time, you can test the students' performance, award the grades, and send the reports, so that student will be alerted, so that he can finish the remaining. There may be course may be offered for 6 months or 1 year, so that in the stipulated time period, the student can able to complete that particular course. So the LMS package, the LMS platform, does take care of all these things.
Yeah.
So and some as I told you, the course management modules may be there. The course management module generally what the authoring tools may be embedded, integrated into that one. Like as I told you, Moodle, as there may be Sachinand Sir has said, there are many commercial tools are there, there are open access tools are there, open source tools.
So when we are talking about Moodle, let us give a small video presentation to our students about the Moodle. Can you please make the video available to the students? This video which we have taken from the internet. Okay, after this small video presentation, I would like to ask Professor Chandrasekhar Rao Garu to give us some statistics about the users of Moodle, because it's very popular, mostly used open source platform learning management system.
Sure, madam. Some statistics on the Moodle, because it is a widely used platform throughout the world. So the number of registered sites are 71,600. So 223 countries are presently using this Moodle. So 9,523,148 courses are included in this Moodle. There are 84,591,379 users are there using the Moodle. So 247,422,588 enrollments on the Moodle. The number of form posts are 171,529,329 form posts, and the number of resources are 86,776,664, and quiz questions are 432,481,390. So, the Moodle is available in 86 languages. The top 10 countries using the Moodle are United States, Spain, Brazil, UK, Mexico, Germany, Italy, Australia, Colombia, and Russian Federation. So, it's a widely used platform throughout the world.
Thank you, Professor Chandrasekhar Rao garu. And also there are other learning platforms like Brahaspati, which was developed by IIT Kanpur, and then there are
E-Shiksha
also
by-
CDAC also. You can tell about this very briefly.
Yes, sure. CDAC also has developed an LMS application called E-Shikshak, which is available in around 10 different Indian languages, and it has got many features like Moodle, and moreover we have a dedicated team who gives continuous support to this E-Shikshak application. It is basically an LMS application, and it also supports some kind of personalization features also.
Thank you, Sachinaran garu. And as the final, I mean, the institutions have to be prepared for implementing the e-learning. The most important aspect is every institute. Recently, UGC also has given guidelines that no university should implement the e-learning or online courses without a e-learning policy. E-learning policy has to state what are the technologies to be used and how the learner should behave in the e-learning environment. It can also include several other aspects like learner privacy, so on and so forth. So, this will bring in uniformity, and then apart from that, the institution should have a very strong team of subject experts, team of media editors, and then its technology specialists and all that, so that it will be very effectively e-learning programs can be implemented. And lastly, we would like to discuss what are the different LIS courses that are offered. Professor Chandrasekhar Rao garu, very briefly in 1 minute, please.
Yeah, in LIS at the global level, their courses are there at BLS and MLS. Even the very prestigious institutions like Harvard and Stanford are offering.
The time is, sir, please continue with the Indian efforts.
So, in India, especially in the library science, we have NME-ICT, National Mission on Education through ICT. They have recently prepared courses under ePathshala project.
Yes, actually we have several initiatives that are taken up in abroad and as well as in India, and so far we have discussed all the topics. I think thank you very much, sir, for coming to our studios and sparing your and sharing your knowledge with our students. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sir.
Thank you.